It's hard to imagine that these mountains began their life on the bed of an ancient sea. It's hard as well to imagine the forces that created them around 200 million years ago. But that was just the start. What we see today is an ongoing process of evolution, the forces of erosion by water, ice and wind that have moulded this landscape over hundreds of thousands of years. A mere 50 years ago, this valley at the foot of Mount Edith Cavell in Jasper National Park was still ice-bound. The classic U-shape and the sharply chiselled faces of the mountains are clear evidence that this was indeed a glacial valley. At the head of the valley, immediately below the ice-covered face of the mountain, we get a taste of life in an ice age. But now the ice is all but gone, and slowly but surely, as the ice recedes, the valley is being colonised by plants and animals. In another 50 years, there will be few remaining signs of this icy world. The part that rivers have played in forging this landscape can be seen very clearly in Johnston Canyon in Banff National Park. Over a period of 10,000 years or so, Johnston Creek has carved a deep, narrow canyon into the limestone. Limestone is the most common rock in this region. Extremely porous, it is riddled with fault lines that enable water to have such a dramatic effect on the landscape. We can see here how the river has carved a channel back from where the waterfall would originally have been. Many rivers in this region are fed by glacial runoff. At this time of climate change, when glaciers are melting at an alarming rate, the rivers become raging torrents. The Cree Indians named these falls Takaka, meaning "it is magnificent." They plunge 380 metres over a sheer limestone cliff to the valley floor. Several times higher than Niagara, they are the undisputed highlight of the Yoho Valley. As you stand beside Sunwapta Falls in Jasper National Park, you can almost feel the power of the river and see landscape in the making. The Moline River, seen here as it carves out the impressive Moline Canyon, shows beyond any doubt the awesome erosive power of rivers. In these high mountain regions, fire plays an important part in clearing out old and diseased vegetation. A series of fires in 2003 affected almost 15% of Kootenay National Park. The effects can still be seen, although the process of regeneration is well underway. As we gaze at this spectacular scenery, we hardly need wonder that people are drawn back to this region time and time again. The eastern main ranges of the Canadian Rockies are famous worldwide. They encompass the major Canadian national parks of Banff, Jasper, Kootenay and Yoho, as well as a number of adjacent provincial parks that together form the core of the tourist industry of Western Canada. People come here in their thousands to soak up the scenery, to enjoy all manner of activities, and to marvel at the wildlife. It's now September, and as the colours of autumn begin to show themselves, the Canadian Rockies are basking in the warmth of an Indian summer. This is an ideal time to watch wildlife prepare for the coming winter. On the hillside above Two Jack Lake in Banff National Park, a bachelor herd of young bighorn rams are busy at a popular mineral lick. Bighorns are very common in the Canadian Rockies. They have an insatiable desire for the mineral salts that play an important part in producing a healthy coat for the coming winter. Their drive for salt is so strong that they'll lick salt off the highways and even off motor vehicles. But watch out, they can be quite aggressive, and damage to motor cars is not uncommon, so best keep your distance. Easily confused with each other, the chipmunk and the golden-mantled ground squirrel are regularly seen along the trails and amongst the rock piles throughout the national parks. The chipmunk can be identified by the racing stripes along the body and across the face. We normally see them darting about, making we photographers' lives very challenging, but this little guy seems happy to pose for a while. The golden-mantled ground squirrel looks much like a chipmunk, but without the stripy face. Very inquisitive, they will approach quite closely in the hope of receiving food handouts. This is a great temptation, but it isn't in the best interests of the animal to become dependent on humans for food, so the temptation should be resisted. Both these little animals take a sensible line and hibernate for 6 to 8 months of the year. Elk are one of the most abundant large mammals to be found in the Canadian Rockies. This solitary young female is grazing under the watchful eye of a resting bull. Seeing this impressive rack of antlers, it's hard to believe that elk cast their antlers every year and grow a whole new rack. The number of points is a guide to age, so this fine bull is at least 6 years old. Antlers can span up to 1.5 meters and weigh up to 15 kilos. This meadow on the Minnewanka Loop Road is a regular grazing ground for this herd. The great shame is that it's almost dark and the chances of an extended filming session are not good. But this is the rutting season, and if we're patient there could well be some excitement. The bulls are very aggressive at this time of year. They jealously guard their herds, and trials of strength between rival bulls are regular events as the rutting season advances. Elk are now regarded as the most dangerous animal in the Canadian Rockies, especially when the bulls are pumped full of hormones. Parks Canada recommends staying at least 100 metres away when viewing elk, even further during the rutting season. And it's no good approaching in your car. There have been several cases of bulls attacking cars and causing considerable damage. It's now becoming almost impossible to film. The iris is wide open and on maximum gain, so I guess we'll leave them to it and hope for a better sighting on another day. Wolves are recolonising the Bow Valley in Banff National Park, but they are reclusive and it's a very slow process. These beautiful animals were filmed at a rescue centre near Golden. Unlike chipmunks and golden-mantled ground squirrels, red squirrels don't hibernate. They hide away from the worst of the weather, but emerge to enjoy the winter sunshine. At this time of year, they're busy feeding and storing away food for the long winter months. So watch out, little chap. And watch out again. This raven appears to be psyching up for a hunting session. Ask most people what they'd like to see in the Canadian Rockies, and a grizzly bear will always be high on the list. The best we'll see today is grizzly bear scat, but at least we know they're around. Bear sightings never come easy. Sometimes the only sign you'll get is a slight movement or a rustling in the bushes. Then, provided the bear is relaxed and there's food to be had, you could be in for a real treat. There are some 200 black bears spread over the 4 national parks that together cover more than 20,000 square kilometres. So seeing a bear depends on little more than sheer luck. This guy is quite unusual. The prominent white mark on his chest is reminiscent of a similar bear seen in Jasper by a park ranger some 20 years ago. Maybe we're watching his great-grandson. By the end of September, bears will be hibernating, so food is high on the agenda. Actually, it always is. Autumn berries are the great attraction here. Wildlife viewing in Canada just has to include Canada geese. Very vocal and highly entertaining, these birds can nonetheless be very temperamental and are not averse to using their beaks as weapons, so they're best filmed from a respectable distance. Until a few years ago, a bison paddock was sighted in the Bow Valley, just to the north of Banff, where at one stage several hundred bison were housed. The herd was gradually reduced in size until the decision was taken to remove the paddock altogether to permit freedom of movement through the valley by other animals. To see plains bison in Canada today, you must visit a dedicated farm, such as this one near Golden, where bison are raised as specialty livestock. Seeing these magnificent animals at close quarters makes the extermination of the plains bison, which happened so fast and on such a scale, so totally incomprehensible. In 1800, 60 million bison roamed the Great Plains and the valleys east of the Great Divide. By 1850, there were only half this number, and by 1890 the bison were gone. Fewer than 50 remained. The plains were littered with bones, the native people were reduced to abject poverty, and settlers were flooding west to farm the prairie wilderness. Mankind has much to answer for. It's daylight, and we may have another chance to film rutting elk. In fact, these are a couple of youngsters, around 3 to 4 years old, but they're determined to embark on the traditional trial of strength that all bulls should display to be worth their salt. Having said that, these two are as interested in feeding as they are in fighting. Nevertheless, we can see from this trial of strength that bulls can inflict considerable damage with their antlers. It would be very easy to lose an eye in the heat of a proper battle. It's appropriate to remind ourselves here that we should never intimidate a bull. Maybe it's okay to stand tall and wave a stick at a hind, but to do this to a bull is likely to be seen as a dueling challenge. Guess who my money's on? Moline Lake Road in Jasper National Park is a wildlife hotspot. So here we are, at dusk again, this time with our lenses pointed at a mother bear and her 2 cubs. Mum seems happy for us to film while they feed, so as long as the light holds out, here goes. Just a reminder that there is on average just 1 bear for each 100 square kilometres in the 4 national parks, so we're in luck tonight. Our challenge for today is to find and film a little critter the Native Americans call pica. So first we find a rock pile by Medicine Lake. Then we scan it for small haystacks drying in the sun. Then we look for telltale movements in the grass. The occasional glimpse in the grass or high on the rocks confirms that we're in the right place. Then it's patience that counts. These little guys move very fast and generally don't wait around very long in any one place. They're more often heard than seen. Their warning call can be heard at quite a distance away. But eventually our patience is rewarded and we get our first clear views of pica, also known as the rock rabbit. As with red squirrels, these little guys don't hibernate, but see out the winter in their burrows within the rock piles. As the month wears on, the weather changes, and the first signs of winter arrive in these mountains. Winter brings its own beauty, but also brings a host of challenges for the wildlife. So, during these cosy evenings, whilst you're curled up by a warm fire, please spare a thought for the pica, sheltering from the snow in his little haystack in the rock pile by Medicine Lake.